these are some of the questions that we would ask. Are they raised in mobile housing? Are they fed GMOs? Does any of the food have pesticides or herbicides sprayed on them? Do they spray the land with either pesticides or herbicides? Are any antibiotics administered?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another podcast from Beyond Labels with your hosts, Joel Salatin, the farmer, and Dr. Sina, our favorite researcher. Today's topic comes from one of our listeners. We love listener feedback. Sarah Bodenheimer says, I listen to the podcast every Thursday morning on my way to work. Thank you for that. But her basic issue is just, I'm frustrated more than ever over the past couple of weeks trying to find. I thought I had some really good Vidalia onions. I went to the farmer's market and I found only one vendor that doesn't spray of all the vendors there at the farmer's market, and he raises microgreens. I was looking for Vidalia onions, and my brother-in-law wanted to go in on a box of Vidalia onions. So I emailed the farm, asked what they spray on their crop. They couldn't tell me. All they said is, quote, all Vidalia farms spray them with the same USDA approved pesticide. Yeah, it's always USDA approved, isn't it? Your best bet may be to buy organic onions at the grocery store, unquote. Needless to say, I'm not going to be splitting this box of onions with my brother-in-law. Am I doing this right? Do you have any resources that I can access to be better equipped in finding clean food? Any guidance or advice will be appreciated. My go-to question has been, what do you spray? I feel as if leaving it open-ended on their end may allow me to have more transparency. This is not certainly Sina. This isn't the first time we received, a request like this. How do we proceed? And you have some great initial thoughts, and we'll try to help. We'll try to help Sarah through this. And at the top, I think it's important for me to say, we don't have a recipe. We don't have a recipe, book, but we do have some thoughts that I think will be helpful. So Sina, you want to start?
Sure. And yeah, I love this question because we've all been there, right? And it's a process that we go through to try to basically swap out one unclean food for one clean food at a time, right? We go through the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by sharing a few tidbits from our book, from mine and Joel's book called Beyond Labels, because we do cover a lot of this in the book in terms of where do you start? What questions do you ask, right? How do you actually find this clean food? So under practical bite number 52, the tip is how to eat ecologically grown produce from a local farmer. So one website you can go to is localharvest.org, and there's an organic farms section on that website. You enter the zip code and different farms will pop up in your area, but you can't just trust those farms just because they're on that website. Okay, that's step one. Step two is going to be, you're either going to call the farm or you're going to ask them questions by going to the farm. Some of the questions that we ask is, what is your fertilizer program? What is your pest control program? What is your weed control program? Do you till the soil? Do you apply biosolids to your land? Where does the water come from that's used to irrigate your crops? And do you wax your produce? All right, so those are some initial questions that you could ask beyond just, what do you spray, or what do you spray? In terms of trying to find ecologically raised pastured chickens, Joel provided a website from the American Pastured Poultry Producers Association. It's appa.org. So you can find local pastured poultry producers.
Put one more P in it, Sina. It's APPP. There's three P's there. It's APPA.
APPA. Okay, appa.org. So that's step one, right? You can use that to find a local pastured poultry producer, a local PPP. Then again, you can either visit the farm or you can call them. These are some of the questions that we would ask. You would ask, are they raised in mobile housing? Are they fed GMOs? Does any of the food have pesticides or herbicides sprayed on them? Do they spray the land with either pesticides or herbicides? Are any antibiotics administered? And are the chickens disinfected with any chemicals during processing? So you could just actually ask what is used to disinfect the chickens during processing. All right, so those are our basic questions for trying to find clean chicken. The next one would be ecologically raised pastured eggs. And again, you're going to go to that same website, the apppa.org. Again, call the farmer or visit the farm, and you're going to ask basically the same questions. If the chickens were raised in mobile housing, if they were fed GMOs or any food that had pesticides or herbicides, if there were any pesticides or herbicides sprayed on the land, if any antibiotics were given to the chickens, and what was used to disinfect the eggs during processing, if anything, like were they bleached or whatnot. All right, then we have two more. We have questions for finding ecologically raised grass-finished beef and then pork. Okay, so for the beef, the website that Joel provided was eatwild.com. Again, that's step one. You would then either visit the farm that popped up or you would call the farm. You would ask if the cows are ecologically raised, including things like, are they rotated on pasture? Are they fed GMOs or any of the food sprayed with pesticides or herbicides? Or is the land sprayed? If they're given antibiotics or hormones, and if the meat is disinfected with chemicals during processing. I'm going to add, so for the chickens, the cows, and the pork, basically any of the animals, I ask if they're vaccinated, and if they are, what are they vaccinated with? Especially since, Joel, we just did that 3-part series on mRNA vaccines being in the food supply. So for me, if they're vaccinated with anything, that's a no-go, right? I used to tolerate some vaccines at some point, like if we were traveling and I didn't have access to like polyphase meat, for instance, then if they just did some traditional vaccines, I'd be willing to eat it so I wouldn't starve. But now that we know they're replacing the conventional vaccines, the more traditional vaccines with the mRNA versions, now it's just a no start for me. I won't eat anything that's been vaccinated. And then, the last one is how to find the ecologically raised pastured pork. Again, it's one website is eatwild.com. That's step one. You would then visit the farm or call them. Ask if the pigs are rotated on pasture. Again, if they're fed GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, if the land is sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, if they're given antibiotics, hormones, or vaccines, and how is the meat disinfected during processing. So that's a good starting point, right? Those questions kind of cover a lot of different areas. But then, Joel, you had a couple more options for where they can start looking right through different.
There's I'll hold it up here so everybody can see it. The Weston A. Price Foundation has a shopping guide, and they have it divided by by category, bread, even pemmican and jerky, produce, fruits, processed meat, fresh meat, different things. And the thing about this is that it has categories divided in, even within those categories, of best and good. And then there's some of them have a little thing at the end, avoid, just to help what are the big red flag things that you want to avoid. And they don't have any businesses listed, but like under let's see, under grains and legumes, avoid things from China. Okay. This is a great guide, and it's growing each year. And and really, it's been a helpful thing. I think one of the most important things, Sina, that we can encourage folks in this discussion, when you're looking, is just don't give up. I mean, I appreciate the frustration. I mean, you think you're going to the farmer's market and you're going to all these, nice, cool, clean farms. And well, I mean, she said some of the people, their Vidalia onions, they didn't even know who grew them, and they're at farmers markets. Now, obviously, that's not a producer only market. That's a market that allows, anybody to come in. And there's an entire, whatever, non-supermarket subculture, if you will, that goes to these non-producer only markets, and they buy and sell. They buy overages, and they find stuff and act as a whatever, as a kissing cousin to the supermarket. But beyond that, the main thing is keep looking. I mean, we get frustrated. We think this shouldn't be that difficult. I just want to find an unsprayed Vidalia onion, right? I mean, how hard can that be? Well, it's actually not easy. And you might not be able to find a Vidalia onion. You might have to get a different kind of onion. I know Vidalias are really cool. And, if you want to go eat one, go eat one. I'm not gonna fuss at you. You can call that your 20%. And Sina, don't jump on me for my 20%. But
Joel, bad. Like,
yeah. So, but for sure, there are going to be organic Vidalia onions probably at the supermarket. And so don't just diss the whole, that whole option either. But the main thing is keep looking. Don't take your frustration and say, forget this, it's too difficult, and go eat bonbons in front of the Netflix show. Stay with it. And finally, I think, to wrap it up, we would simply say, don't give up. Be encouraged, and don't give up. And you will, if you keep searching, you'll find that option. And I think that's our final encouragement to everybody, to to just not give up and stay with it. Thank you for joining us on another Beyond Labels podcast. Sina and I appreciate your listening. If you like this kind of information, please share it with your friends so that we can continue to get more of this practical advice out to our world. Thanks for being with us. We look forward to you on our next Beyond Labels podcast.